Why, hello there, friends. Thanks for clicking on this video and joining in on what ultimately is going to be my final experimentation with Juniper. Okay, for two reasons. I've got some other charcoal that I want to blend it with to see if I can improve the performance of both charcoals blended. All of my notes have indicated to me that the blending of the wood charcoal sources improves the numbers. Peanut shell on its own is, in my opinion, fantastic. Mullein on its own, in my opinion, is fantastic. And pistachio shell on its own is fantastic. But some of my numbers have shown, like when I blended aspen with juniper, I got the first shot was 1829. That's an 80 grain charge by weight, not by volume. And I have some other numbers here showing what the 5-shot averages of juniper and aspen, and it's encouraging. I want to see if I can't blend the juniper with my alders, and or maybe even blend it with my peanut shell and see if I can't improve the feet per second. So this is just the beginning stages, and I want to show everybody, you know, at what point I'm stopping the burn, because I want to ensure I am not overcooking this batch of juniper. And like I stated, I wasn't so sure in the past whether I had overcharred that juniper or not. So I'll get the camera turned around and I'll show you what the batch is looking like right now. So as you can see, there's still plenty of brown left on this wood. Yeah, there's some of it a little dark, but this is just the first batch. I'm positive I have not overcooked it at this point. I've got a little bit right here that is in the container, and I'm hoping the camera's picking up, but there's more of a brown shade to it than there is a black shade to it. So I'm going to continue breaking this down. I've got another can down there that I'm cooling off, and I have another can right here that's ready to have the lid taken off and inspect it, and I will tumble as what I can and get the charcoal off that I can, and then whatever is no longer producing any charcoal, then I'll go ahead and put everything back in the cans and cook them some more. So just in case if anybody's interested, this is the juniper that I'm making the gunpowder out of. Once again, it's alligator, and this has been on the ground since winter time. That limb came off of this huge alligator bark tree right here. I've showed this before in the past. We had a heavy snow, and that limb snapped. So you can see that the limb is not something I picked up off the ground, but came off of the tree as a fresh break. So just in case anybody is curious, this is pretty much the random sizes that I cut the juniper in. And what I did to ensure that all the moisture was driven out of that branch, even though it's been sitting on the ground drying out for several months now, when I get the pieces cut up, I put them on a tray and I weighed it, and if I remember right, it weighed about 6.5 pounds. I put it in my truck, closed up all the windows, and every day I measured what that weight loss was, just in case there was still some moisture in the wood, and there was. But I think if I remember right, I had it in my truck for 3 days, and on the 4th day it quit losing any weight, which tells me that the moisture was driven out of the wood completely in my hot truck, and it would be easy to do that when you cut it up into small pieces. So that's why I did that, and let's continue on. So just to reassure myself that I did not overcook it, you can still see I have more of the charring process to go through. Whether this will really make a noticeable improvement or not, only time can tell. So I don't know how well the camera's picking it up at this angle, but I just kind of wanted to reiterate that if the camera's picking it up, there is a brown hue, brown tint to this charcoal, which is juniper, which once again indicates to me it's not overcharred. Alright, it's been 32 hours. I'm going to shut the milling process down. At about 20 hours or so, it started compacting, but not as tight or as big a chunks as what I just pulled out of this container at 32 hours. So I'm going to call this good. Again, I'm only experimenting with juniper to see, if I can improve it. And if you can look, and I don't know how well the camera is picking this up, but there is kind of a brownish gray tinge to this gunpowder instead of the, typical gray that I'm used to seeing at least. So I'm going to go ahead and run all this through the screen, start getting it pucked, and then while I'm doing that, determine what my next batch is going to be. And having just run it all through the screen, you can see even by shaking it up, it's rolling around in little tiny balls, what would be the size of the screen. And once again, I don't know if you can see it from this angle or this light, but there's definitely a brownish tinge to it. Okay, carrying on. I think it's more readily apparent that you can see that brown hue, that brown tinge. I just blew out all the extra excess dust, and there's that brown tinge. Now this spot right there that looks like it's been rubbed, it has been. I actually took my finger, wet it, and just see if this hue, this brown tinge color, is removed, cleaned off, so to speak, and it is. But I think this gives us a better view of the color of that charcoal. And just for the sake of argument, I went ahead and washed out the inside of the tumbler. And in case if anybody's curious, no, I did not use water, I used acetone. And you can see that there's a clear color difference from the white to that brown hue, which was the charcoal. So to remain consistent, this jar right here is 15 grams of that alligator bark juniper that I'm experimenting with. This is what 15 grams represents volume-wise, and this would be the amount of fuel that we're adding to the KNO3 and the sulfur. This jar right here is 7.5 grams of that juniper. This jar right here is 7.5 grams of my peanut shell. So I'm going to add that to the 7.5 grams right here. So we'll have a total of 15 grams. Now, with this having been done like this right now, I'm thinking that the peanut shell is a lot heavier than 0.48 to 0.50. I'm thinking it's more along the lines of maybe like a 0.63 to a 0.65. That's just a guess. Okay, that's just a guess. So I'm going to mix the peanut shell with the alder, and let's compare the two volumes as they are sitting in front of us. I'm going to pull this away and settle it. So now we can get a better view of what 15 grams of this juniper is and what 15 grams of the juniper peanut shell mixed. So just thinking ahead, which gunpowder do you think is going to burn cleaner? The one that has the more fuel to burn, or the less fuel to burn? Stick around, because only time will tell. So what you see in front of you is 75 grams potassium nitrate, 15 grams of the alligator bark juniper. I have 10 grams of the alligator bark juniper and 5 grams of Osage orange. I thought about using alder to blend with the juniper, but that would have brought the volume level of the blended charcoal source, juniper and alder, way above here. So what I'm going to do is I'm wanting to keep the volume of the charcoal sources equal, or if not a hair lower than what the potassium nitrate is. So what I'm going to do is simply do this. Level this off and move that out and put that volume of charcoal close to the potassium nitrate, and we can see volume wise we're probably a hair above it, which is fine. I'm still theorizing at this point. It still should burn efficiently and fairly clean, but once again, only time will tell. So while I'm waiting for this batch of gunpowder to dry out, I thought I'd just take a few moments and bend your ear, so to speak. If you're new to this channel and you're just wanting to learn how to make your own homemade black powder, my absolute caution is you're dealing with an explosive. Take every caution you deem necessary to ensure safety. Okay? What I'm about to express, some may not deem safe, but allow me to explain. During the summer months, and sometimes in the winter when the outside temperature is convenient for it, and I'm making gunpowder at that time, I take my pucks and I put them on a tray and I place them on the dashboard of my truck, and I let that radiating sun and the heat that comes through the windshield help in drying out those pucks. And I can get those pucks dried out within a matter of a few hours. Yesterday, I took my temperature gun and I took a reading off a couple of those pucks, and I was at 158.8 degrees. Last year, on occasion, I got 164 degrees. Now, I know that's probably going to make some people cringe, and I would cringe also, but I've done this as a matter of practice for several years now, and I have not had an issue. That's not to say that I won't have an issue, but for the time being, that's how I dry out my pucks. Okay? So take that with a grain of salt, and once again, how I do things, I'm not telling anybody you need to do it like this to ensure the best. I'm just not that type of content creator. Okay? I'll explain to you what I do, how I do it, but ultimately safety is on your own shoulders. Okay? Now, in light of the previous video that I had done, I had taken randomly some of my lead media and I put my dial calipers on it to see just precisely how much lead or size I have lost by using my lead media. Now, before I go any further, you should also understand that my lead media that I'm using, it's a 60-40 blend of lead to tin. So for every 60 pounds of lead, there's 40 pounds of tin in it. So my lead media is very, very hard. Now when I did that random sampling, I noted that at that point I had been using that same lead media for several years. And that's all I lost, on an average 3 to 4 thousandths in size. So presumably I'm leaving that dust behind. Presumably. Now, you also have to bear in mind too that when you look at how efficient black powder is, which it's not, Brett Gibbons makes mention that black powder at best is only like 43% efficient. The rest of it is fouling. On the channel Times Gone Tech, Terry is putting up some videos in his process of making black powder also. And as a general rule of thumb, you can really say your black powder is only 50% at best efficient, but it's actually below that. So when you're dealing with a black powder that's only, 45 to 50% efficient, what or how is that little bit of lead dust really going to affect that efficiency? It's very minuscule as far as my opinion's concerned. But what I did is, after I did that random sampling of my lead media, I remelted all that lead and I recast it. I did that for two reasons. Number one is that I had a bunch of lead media in there that I come to realize really wasn't doing much grinding at all. Because when I first started doing this, everybody was saying, you got to have a variety of sizes. So that's what I did. I went 36, 44, 50, 54, and it milled. Yes, it milled, but did it mill efficiently? Well, some people seem to think it does. Some people say no. That's a matter of your experimenting with it and you're coming to your own conclusions, okay? But what I did, because based on what Brett said in his book, he just uses all the same size media, okay? So what I did is I took all that lead media, I remelted it, and I only recast two sizes, 530 and 454, okay? Now, once I got that done, knowing that the Lee bullet molds, when you cut the sprue, it always leaves a little bit of lead on the very, very top. So I took all that round ball that I had made, put it back in my tumbler for 2 hours, and I let it mill against itself in the hopes of knocking off all that lead that would be part of the sprue, and mission accomplished. After 2 hours, I opened the lid, and all that lead media literally looked like steel balls. They literally were polished and shiny like steel. I began to wonder whether I really used lead or not. So knowing that I have a fresh batch of media, two sizes, and knowing that I made 3 batches of gunpowder, okay, the batch that is Juniper as a standalone charcoal source, I milled that for 34 hours. The next batch was Juniper peanut shell. That milled for 32 hours. And then the batch that I'm drying now, which is Juniper Osage, that I also milled for 32 hours. So as it stands right now, I got 30, 60, 90, 94. I got 98 hours just in milling with gunpowder, the 3 components, and I have a couple more hours of just milling it by itself, knocking off all the loose pieces of lead. So after about 100 hours of milling, what do my round balls look like now? Oops. Let me try to get it right in the center here. And without dropping it, I'm still right at 0.530. So at least when I test this gunpowder, I'm pretty confident there's no lead dust in it. Now for the 454, if I can hold it without dropping it, this one is right at 456. And there again, we should already all recognize that the Lee round ball molds does not produce a perfectly round ball. So at least when I get out there and shoot this batch, I have a really complete level playing field, and I'm anxious to see what these numbers are going to produce. So I guess I'm going to finish drying this gunpowder out, get it sized, and we'll see you out at the shooting range. I know, I forgot the burn test. So let's head on over into the shop and do our burn test. I have 2 clean sides, one right here, and let's just see if any one of these gunpowders will actually burn cleaner than the other. So here's 20 grains of the alligator bark juniper. That went up pretty quick. Once again, alligator bark juniper blended with peanut shell, 20 grains, and I have a green dot this corner of the block, so when I do the comparison I know which gunpowder is which. Alright, get reset up, and now we'll do the alligator bark juniper blended with Osage. So let me just put into the context. The previous burn, alligator bark peanut shell, was a 50-50 blend. This gunpowder, as mentioned, is alligator bark juniper blended with Osage, but the blend is 2 parts the alligator bark juniper and 1 part Osage. Okay, let's get a close-up of the blocks. Okay, here's the block of the alligator bark juniper. Decide for yourself if you think this is clean or dirty, if it burned fast enough for you. But I will tell you, this was milled for 34 hours. Okay, and if I take my finger and rub it like I normally do, judge for yourself. And like I showed previously with another burn test on that plate glass, you're going to get some fouling. You can't escape that. You just can't. Okay? But that's what the block looks like with the alligator bark juniper, with the charcoal source not being blended at all. Alright, let's move on to the second test. Look at that block. So here's the green dot. That should tell you that this was the burn test. That was a 50-50 blend of alligator bark juniper and peanut shell. Be putting the 2 blocks together. Decide for yourself which one is possibly cleaner. I am inclined to believe that this is a cleaner burning gunpowder blended with the peanut shell. Now you might see some crystals on here. I tried to record out on my shooting table and I set it down, and this is the dirt that was transferred from the top of my shooting table. It's overcast right now and there's a bit of a breeze, so I pulled everything back here in my blacksmith shop here. So don't let that deceive you into thinking that this is dirtier. It's just that I set it down on that table like this, and that's the sand and dirt that was transferred. Try to look beyond that if you can. So it's a little overcast this morning. I don't know if what I'm about to show you does this any justice or not, but hopefully you could be able to see for yourself. Okay. So it's a little overcast right now, so I don't know if me showing you the blocks is going to do this any justice or not, but you decide for yourself. Here's the burn, the Juniper by itself. It's breezy. Okay, now for the final burn. Alligator bark juniper and osage, and as I mentioned, it's 2-to-1 blend. Decide for yourself. And remember, the last two burns were milled, the gunpowder was milled for up to 32 hours. Alright? And here's the block with the juniper as a standalone. Guys, decide for yourself. I'm not going to tell you what's better or believe what's better, but I'm just looking at the blocks, and from this perspective right here, I would dare say that the juniper blended with the peanut shell produced a much cleaner looking burn, or at least what's left behind. But once again, make that determination for yourself. Alligator bark juniper with peanut shell, alligator bark juniper with osage. Okay, the day's here. Typically I shoot 80 grains by weight, and that's what I'm going to do today. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh out every individual charge instead of just relying on settling it. But when I get that first charge weighed out, I'll put it in the powder measure, and then I'll show you where it's represented on the scale right here. I will be shooting the alligator juniper as it is the standalone gunpowder. So I'll get that accomplished, and we'll see if we can't get some respectable numbers. And if you guys can see the powder measure, I guess she's probably about maybe 85 grains by volume. And in case anybody is curious, right off the bat, yes, I am charging the flash pan with the respective gunpowder that I'm testing. Well, you can see it, 1680. And the last time I tested this gunpowder, I got just about the same thing. Alright, I'll get another 80 grains loaded up, and in case anybody's interested, no, I am not shooting at any targets. I'm just interested in getting some numbers. $16.18. Let me see if I can find that patch. I didn't find the first one, but let me see if I can find that one, get reloaded up. I'm going to retake that one because it says 1203. And I think that patch made it all the way to the berm. Let me go get resituated and take it again. $17.42. Because of the sun and everything, I've had to re-angle my chronograph, so I don't know if that's messing up my numbers or not, but what I thought was the patch at the dirt berm, I think it was just some debris flying up. Let me see if I can't keep going here. And just because it is a bit breezy out here, we know how sensitive these scales are going to be when the wind's blowing across the pan. So this is kind of helping me keep everything squared away. Yay, I found that patch. So that's number 4. Really ain't all that dirty. But again, you guys decide to make up your own mind. That's shot number 4. That's not all that bad. $16.98. Well, I found that one. There it is. That's pretty clean. It's not as high velocities as I would have expected, but there again, recalling from memory, the first time I started experimenting with these junipers as a single source charcoal, I wasn't getting that many feet per second anyways. But even back then, a couple years ago, I was telling everybody how clean of a gunpowder this really is. Alright, let me get reloaded and get you another number. $16.98, in case I forgot. Well, you guys can see it like I do, $16.95. So before I clean the gun out and clean out the lock, I thought I'd give you all a close-up. Decide for yourself. As far as I'm concerned, that's a hell of a lot cleaner than Swiss. But make of it what you will. Well, like I said, cloudy. Looks like I'll be taking a little bit of a break. So the next one we'll be testing is peanut shell. And that's what 80 grains represents volume-wise as opposed to the weight. And I would have expected that because the peanut shell is just a little bit lighter, which would make the entire blend lighter. Alright, let me see if I can't get some numbers here in between the clouds. Well, you guys can see it as well as I do. $17.85. Vast improvement with the peanut shell. And remember, this is a 50-50 blend. Well, there's that first patch. It's pretty damn clean. Just look at it, guys. $17.13. Well, I found that one. It's a little bit dirtier, I must say. But once it dries out, it'll look a lot lighter. Again, when it's wet, it's going to be presenting itself as being much dirtier than it actually is. And it's still damp because I can still feel the moisture in it. Alright, guess I'll be waiting for the cloud to pass over. I'll see you as soon as the sun comes back out. $17.29. $17.60. Well, there you have it, $17.61. I'll get the rifle cleaned out. Wait a minute, let me show you the lock. Yeah, there you have it. It's not really any dirtier than the first go around with Juniper by itself. Alright, now I'll get it cleaned out and we'll get ready for the last 5 shots, Juniper and Osage, and that's a 2-to-1 blend. 2 parts Juniper, 1 part Osage. I don't know how well you guys can see it, but it's 17.52. $17.29. $17.05. I haven't found any of the patches yet. I'm hoping I at least find one. But the previous round with the Juniper and peanut shell, that was the last patch. I just forgot to show it. It's pretty clean. And it's dried out too. 1720. All right, there's that patch. It was just in front of the chronograph. Didn't hit it, but it fell in front of it. But it's pretty clean as far as I'm concerned. Somebody may argue that, but this is just my opinion. I think it's pretty clean. I'm not having any problems loading whatsoever with any of these shots. Well, there it is, 1734. Let me get you a close-up of the lock. I don't recollect which shot it was, but when I called it out that I thought one made it all the way to the shooting berm, I actually found it about 1.5 feet just before the shooting berm. And like I said, I don't remember which one it was, but now that that patch is dried out, hopefully you can see that it itself is a pretty clean patch. I haven't found that last patch yet with the Juniper Osage. I'm going to keep looking, get everything packed up, and then I'll, wait a minute, let me give you a close-up of the lock. Now that the sun's gone behind the cloud, I don't know how well you can see that, but there's a lot more smoky residue on the top of the barrel, back in through here, and through the lock right in here, or at least the top of the barrel right here, which wasn't present with any of the other two gunpowder. It's only with the Osage. Interesting. Well, I didn't find what I thought would be the final patch, but I did some scouring around, and I found another one that was actually pretty close to the berm, and I found another one that was pretty close to the berm. I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but this one, I would almost dare say that this was from the first round with the Juniper as the single source charcoal, because this one's a little dirtier than this one is. Like I said, I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but I would say this one's a little dirtier. But there again, based on the feet per second, there's no point in shooting the Juniper as a single source charcoal, from what I can tell right now, without actually crunching the numbers. Well, let me go do that. Well, what did the numbers tell us? The Alligator Juniper as a single source charcoal, 5-shot average was 1686.6. I'd say that would be a little on the low side compared to what everything I've been doing on this channel regarding homemade black powder. And it gave me a spread of 124, so that's pretty high. But when we looked at the Alligator peanut shell, 5-shot average, 1749.6, and that was a 50-50 blend with a spread of 72. How did that compare to the Juniper Osage blend? Well, there again, the Juniper, 2 parts Juniper, 1 part Osage, had an average of 1728. So it didn't perform as good as the 50-50 blend with the peanut shell. But I got to admit, I got to concede, there was a less of a spread with the Juniper Osage, a spread of 47. But here again, I keep asking the question, and I've yet to have anybody give me what I would consider a complete satisfactory answer. What's a good spread? Anything less than 50? Anything less than 80? Anything less than 3? Nobody has been able to tell me what a good baseline for determining a spread. And when you're dealing with something like black powder, which is dirty to begin with, which is inefficient also, what should we be basing our spreads on when it comes to homemade black powder? Because I've done stuff in the past with peanut shell that I've gotten spreads of only like 34. And that's when I've, used the charcoal source as a straight peanut shell. And Osage did really good itself, but there again, the balance of the specific gravities are way out of balance as far as I'm concerned. So anyhow, I'm going to end the testing that I want to do with Juniper. I've got what I want as a single source charcoal for black powder. I won't use Juniper as a single source. And for those that want to continue to claim that single source gunpowders are more powerful, well, you might want to rethink that, because my tests have been showing, for the most part, when I blend the charcoals, they actually do a little bit better. Okay, so anyhow, I want to thank everybody for watching, sticking with it this long. And I have another video that I want to do here real soon, and I need to do it real soon just simply because I'm at the end of a year of testing my 1858 Remington Sheriff's model that's been loaded. One cylinder has been loaded for a year with Swiss 3F 30 grain, and the other cylinder I want to test has been loaded for 2 years, 30 grains of 777, and I kind of want to see how much is actually lost by having these cylinders loaded for that length of time. So stay tuned for that. And once again, guys, if you found this video something useful, give it a thumbs up and share it with your bestest of buds. We'll catch you later. Bye.